Thank you, Andrew, and to Emmylou. It's nice to be chairing this session with you, but firstly I'd like to acknowledge the First Nations peoples, the Ngunnawal Nation, on whose land we meet today, and pay our respects to their elders past and present, and also recognise their deep cultural and spiritual connection to the land and the water in which we all thrive. We've got a great session for you this morning, and I'm going to hand over to Emmylou, who's going to introduce our speakers. Emmylou.
Yumalandi, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to the first session of day 2 of the WiOW Symposium. So the theme for this session is combining First Nations knowledge systems with modern science for healthy water. My name is Emmylou Cook. I'm an environmental scientist with Symversa, where I specialise in the assessment and remediation of contaminated land. 10 years ago, I completed a master's thesis looking at the characterisation looking to characterise the ways in which Indigenous Australians are exposed to contaminated land. And although there have been crickets in this region for the last sort of 10 years, in the last couple of years we've seen a real groundswell at conferences like CTAC, your CSC Care, your ALGA conferences, where we're looking to integrate more of those traditional knowledge systems into modern science. So I'm going to start. So the presenters in this session come from across Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, and will present across a diverse range of topics, from PFAS and bush foods to a 25-year retrospective on Maori engagement in New Zealand. So following the presentation, we will move into a panel discussion, and I invite you to hang on to all of your questions until the end, and Carleen will host that panel session. So I now invite the first of our thought leaders to the stage, Carla Gee, who is the CEO of EcoMatters Environment Trust.
Kia ora, everybody. Ko takatimu tu waka, ko wairo te awa, ko Ngāti Kaha Nunu ki te wairo te iwi, ko Manutai te marae, ko Yvonne tuku mama, ko Steve tuku papa, ko Carla tuku ingoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for inviting us here to be a part of your symposium. I have just done what we call in Aotearoa New Zealand, our pipiha, or a way to introduce ourselves and acknowledge the area that we come from. So I am from a place called Wairoa in New Zealand, a beautiful place close to the ocean, and it is a real pleasure for me to be here with you all today. I want to acknowledge too the Aboriginal people of Ngunnawal country. We honour your ancestors and we acknowledge you as the guardians and traditional owners of this land. We thank you for welcoming us to your country and for keeping us safe in the time that we are here with you. And from our iwi across the Tasman Sea, we see you and we come bringing our aroha, love, our wairoa, our spirit and our mana to you all. Thank you. I do just want to very quickly acknowledge my presentation today. It is eclectic. The slides in my presentation are eclectic, and that is because the presentation has been done in the format the entire research project was done, and that is one of collaboration. And so the slides are not uniformed at all, and they are the input from a lot of people who have worked on the research program and who we are here today to represent as well. So, can I do sorry guys, am I doing this one next? There we go, okay. So our project is called Te Hau or Te Hau. So Te Hau is the name of the awa or the river. And I want to acknowledge Robin Toro Gordon, who was our representative from Mana Whenua She was unable to be at the symposium, and I am representing or talking to about mana whenua's involvement in this project. And I also want to acknowledge Ginny Baker, who helped us put together this presentation. Ginny is a social scientist based out of ESR in New Zealand. But as you can see, there were a large number of people involved in this research project, and we have them listed up here. In particular, I wanted to take a moment to introduce Pamela Gill. Pam's just there, and I just wanted to acknowledge her and invite you, if you do have questions after our presentation, or you would like to speak to somebody from community who is absolutely doing the work on the ground, Pam is the person to have a conversation with at any stage. And Louis Tremblay, who of course you all know, who is here at the front and was integral to this project getting up and off the ground. And we have all of the different organisations that were involved in the project. Just wanted to share, thank you, a welcome from Te Ao Māori.
Karanga mai ko te kawarau maki, ko te waoni a tiriwa, mai te kore ki ngā tai araka taura, ko rangihina, ko whakaparawa, ko mahurangi, nā maki te mana, me te rangatiratanga.
So just for clarity, and I think just to really acknowledge the fact that mana whenua, so the people of the land that were involved in this project are Te Ao Māori. Pam and I are tangata whenua from Aotearoa, New Zealand, but we are not mana whenua over this project. And it is really important that I acknowledge that at the beginning of this presentation and make it very clear that I honour Te Ao Māori as the mana whenua of this project. So this is an overview of what I'm going to share with you all today. We're going to hear a little bit more from Te Ao Māori in their own voice. We're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the framework of Te Ao Māori and how it can be used in research, and we're going to go through the 9 mana matapono of Te Ao Māori. We're going to talk about the research approach, tiriti partnership, the process of co-design and co-leadership, and we're going to look at the enduring outcomes.
Te Kawarawamaki are mana whenua of West Auckland and have been involved in this project since its inception. We are kaitiaki of this body of water and as such take a personal interest in the health of the awa. Te Whau, or the Whau River, is of cultural significance to us, as historically it was a source of kai, a place of refuge, a location for karakia, and a portage between the Waitemata and the Manukau harbours. Our goal is for the health of the awa to return so our cultural practices can be reinstated. As kaitiaki of Te Whau, we expected to be involved in every aspect of this piece of research. Early engagement was effective engagement. An acknowledgement of the important role of Te Kawarawamaki as a treaty partner and the inclusion of mātauranga and tikanga Maori in all facets of the research was paramount to our involvement. As the Te Kawarawamaki representative for this project and the manager of Te Kawarau Iwi Te Trust, I can confidently say that we felt like partners in the research, and our mana and the mana of the Te Ao was acknowledged, upheld and enhanced.
You would have heard a lot of Maori words being used in that clip from Robin, and I just wanted to take a little bit of time now to go through the 9 fundamental matapono of the concept of Te Ao Māori, and it is a framework within which we were able to run the research program, and it was very much a part of the co-design stage of the project. And I'm going to do my very best to go through these with you now and not take too long on them, but to really understand the importance of these concepts within Te Ao Māori and how we can actually apply them to a research project. So the first one is the concept of whakapapa. So whakapapa is understanding our place in the present, acknowledging the past, and it also is the concept of layering of generations. Whakapapa is where everyone is involved and where everyone's opinions are brought to the table. The whakapapa can look at the history or lineage of individual people involved in the project and how they come to the project. We can talk about whakapapa in terms of the background of a project. What is the whakapapa of this project or this research? Where did it come from? How did it start? Who was involved? How long has it been running? So the lineage of the project. But during the time that I was involved in Te Hau, I have also heard the use of the word and concept of whakapapa used to describe contaminants. So someone saying, explain to me the whakapapa of that contaminant. So understanding why that is showing up in our water, and that may be, to use an example, it could be something that is naturally occurring in the water but still an issue for our community, or it could be a contaminant that is actually an introduced contaminant. And understanding the whakapapa, where has that come from? So not the name of it, what is the makeup, the history of that contaminant in our water. So I have heard the concept of whakapapa being used in that manner as well. The next one is rangatiratanga. So that is a concept. I've got broad sort of overline umbrella, translation as best we can into English, and I hope that's helpful. But rangatiratanga, it's a concept of what's important to me. So as we come to the table, as mana whenua or as community, what is important to us in terms of understanding the research and what we want to see in terms of outcome of sharing that research? What is impactful for us as community and as mana whenua? It is leadership for outcomes that hold the best interests of entire communities. It is holding the leadership in that space to make those decisions. Kaitiakitanga, it's a very important concept. It's understood as guardianship of Te Ao and all of its resources. It's about I can never get this word right, reciprocity between humans and our environment. It's understanding that it is the relationship that we have between each other, but also the relationship that we have with our rivers, our land, and our mountains. It is acknowledging that there are ancestral ways of doing things and taking care of things, both human and our environment, and to look to those to guide us when making decisions, about future movement. Māori, this is about balance, and it is really important when we think about just transition, that when the transition is not just, we are usually out of balance. So this is very much the concept of restoring our balance and restoring a healthy balance. In a research program, and particularly on an awa, that might look like, does this smell right? Does it look right? And what does the research tell us about the health of this body of water, or this awa? Mana. So mana is the respectful connections that we actually have with each other. Thank you, Louis. Thank you. Thank you. And you would have heard in Robin's clip, she talked about the fact that because they had been involved with the project from inception, because they were part of the co-design, because the treaty was honoured during the process, that she felt, and Karo Amake, a mana whenua, felt that their mana was restored through the process of the 5 years that we worked on this project together. And that is very, very important for Indigenous people, is to have that uplifting feeling of their mana being restored. So a very, very important part of Te Ao Māori, and something that, if there's one thing that you take away from my presentation today, it is the importance of uplifting mana for all people, but particularly our Indigenous people. Manaakitanga. So this is the concept of, it is understood as the caring of the needs of others and showing genuine kindness. I'd like to say that Ginny Baker was our guardian of manaakitanga through our project. Ginny was always thoughtful about our time. Whenever we were meeting, she acknowledged that we were giving of our time. Our energy levels when we would come into meetings or as we prepared for events. And most importantly, our understanding. Ginny was the holder of the space that when, as community members involved in this project, or mana whenua, when the scientists talked about research or data and we didn't understand what they were talking about, we could safely say it doesn't make sense. And Ginny was the holder of that space and that manaaki in the room. Oranga. Oranga is understood to mean wellness, well-being and good health. But the important thing of understanding oranga is it takes a long-term view. And when we talk about a long-term view as Indigenous people, we're not talking about 3 years, we're not talking about 5 years, we are talking about 1,000 years. Excuse me. We are talking about 1,000 years. A long-term view that acknowledges all of the people to come, all of the ancestors we have come from, and all of our whānau to come that will come after us. Kotahitanga is the meaning of oneness and unity, and it expresses the idea of a collective action. And for us, this is the sense of common purpose. As we came together for Te Hau or Te Whau, scientists, research, social scientists, community, mana whenua, we were all coming with different ideas of what we wanted the outcomes of this project to be. But we deeply understood that we had a common purpose, and that's what we were all driving towards. So it is that understanding of a common purpose. What matters to us? And what mattered to each of us in the room was different. I acknowledge that we had wonderful universities involved in our project, and what mattered to them was their students being able to conduct their research safely on our awa. And how were we able to support that desire from one of the people sitting around the table? And it was that interconnectedness of us all working to achieve those common goals and common purposes. I have left, in my opinion, the most important one to last, but whanangatanga, it means building of relationships and making connections. It is vitally important when you are looking at a transdisciplinary approach to a research piece of work that is front and centre. For us as Māori, that means taking time to understand the people that you are sitting alongside. It is not a fast process. Louis and I have often discussed the fact that it will take 2 years to get to the point where there is that level of trust and understanding and friendship and care to be able to actually work on a project in complete harmony. And that's what we were aiming for, and so it is vitally important. If I look at what that looks like at a really base level, it means going into a meeting and potentially spending a decent amount of that meeting time connecting with each other, talking about where each person is, both personally and in their workspace, and taking the time and holding the space for that conversation to happen, because that is where those connections are built. I'm sure there's some of you in the room who in your work life have had colleagues that you might have worked alongside for 5 or 10 years, and there will be significant things about their lives that you don't know, because this part is not done, and it is so important to building trust. A very, very important part of our process. So moving on to look at the research context. So the Whau River in West Auckland is an urban river, and it was a case study picked for the research to be conducted there, and it was done with MBIE funding. It was a funded science research program. In total, the research actually was 5 years in duration. I do just want to do a nod to COVID, which happened in the middle of all of it and delayed us for another year. But actually, it was more time to spend together, so it was wonderful that we had that extended period of time. And we continued to meet during COVID on Zoom, obviously. The first part of the project was looking at emerging contaminants within our awa. And the second part, we moved into a second project, AIM 2, which was the Aotearoa impacts and mitigations of microplastics. We were looking for up-the-pipe preventative approaches to pollution, and we very much wanted to anchor the science, the research, in Maori-centred transdisciplinary approach to better support impacts that we could share with our communities and with our iwi. The co-design section or part of the process, so co-production with communities, begins with honouring Te Reti o Te Waitangi. And it is a partnership. Māori are not just important, they are actually partners, they are Te Reti partners, and it is critical that they are involved right from inception of the project. I just want to say, it's no good. Well, it is not going to be powerful to start a research project and then halfway through decide, maybe we should have actually had involvement from our Aboriginal people and invite them halfway through the project. Okay, that is not uplifting someone's mana. It is so important that we are actually doing that at inception of the program. We anchored in principles of Te Reti. We acknowledged the past and we were orientating towards future outcomes. Indigenous knowledge was clearly and powerfully sustained throughout the program, and we were looking for transformational change for our communities and for our people. Ultimately, it did contribute to a different research culture. There is no doubt about that. I know Louis would laugh at us so many times when he would share research findings with us and we would say, and so what? How do we translate that to our communities in a way that is meaningful and is going to ask them to take action? How can we create that? So a steering group was formed, and that was the partnership between Te Karo Amaki, our mana whenua, EcoMatters, the organisation that Pam and I work for, and Auckland Council. We co-designed right at the beginning with mana whenua and community. We were fully informed, fully involved. The co-creation was flexible. We moved with who wanted to be in the room, who had energy to come to the table. And I want to acknowledge at this point that when we are doing projects with mana whenua, sometimes their capacity to be involved can be very stretched. For us in Aotearoa, that very much depends whether or not the iwi that we are dealing with are pre-treaty settlements, in the middle of treaty settlements, or post-treaty settlements. That is taking a huge amount of time and resource from the iwi, and so we need to be very mindful of that in Aotearoa. It is the evaluation part that we then looked at the end of the project. Actually, we started the evaluation through the project, and in terms of the outcome harvesting interviews that were conducted as well. So they were online interviews done with Te Karo Amaki, with EcoMatters, and with the entire research team. The essence of the Whau, so that the Te Hau or Te Whau translation means the essence of the Whau, and the name of the river is the Whau. We were very much looking to understand the health and the history, and we were really wanting to understand the current impacts and the strategies that we needed to employ to reduce the impacts of microplastics and contaminants of concern. And that really was the overriding umbrella of why everybody was coming together. But as I mentioned earlier, each person's purpose as they came to the table may have been slightly different. It was really understanding and supporting communities' capacity to act, and we'll talk about that a little bit further on in the presentation, and really understanding that journey from macro to microplastics. For us as community in mana whenua, some of the science concepts were difficult for us to get our head around and to understand when you don't come from that background. So it was always about holding that space for us to ask the really basic questions of the scientists and the researchers so we could understand how we would translate that to our community so that they had the capacity to act. This is a very cluttered slide. These are some of the pictures of some of the highlights of things that actually happened through our 5-year journey on Te Hau o Te Whau. And you can see there in the first picture we have at the top there, that's a community event that we were actually holding at EcoMatters. Te Karo Amaki were there to actually do a full historic review of them as iwi and mana whenua of the land. And then we had a whole group of our students, our scientists, everybody at the event to meet with community and talk directly to them about the research and the outcomes of the research. You can see cultural maps. You can see webinar recordings that we did to share the findings of the research with our communities in a language that they would understand, that were up on our websites and available to everybody. You can see stream-side cleanups happening. You can see Pam down there doing work on the stream, and you can see Hoopla involved in there, taking students out on the river and actually acknowledging the amount of pollution and microplastics they were finding. So all of those highlights actually happening during the 5 years. There's a lot more than this, but obviously that slide's already quite cluttered. So, but just to give you an idea.
I'm just
sorry,
actually
guys.
having a tutu with what the video part looks like.
She hadn't quite finished that bit. For us as community, I just wanted to take, and I'm going to be really fast here, I'm mindful of time, just building capacity and capability. For us as EcoMatters, I really want to acknowledge how powerful it was being involved with this project to build our people's capability and capacity and understanding the scientific knowledge. It just gave us so much more scope to engage with other stakeholders, other areas of council, other organisations, because we felt more confident to engage in those conversations. There was radical collaboration that was the opportunity that emerged from us actually being involved in Te Hau o Te Whau. So being involved with Aotearoa Plastics Prevention Association Authority, which was a magical collaboration, because that was at the stage that the UN were actually looking at doing work on the treaty for plastics, and we were able to actually be involved at the beginning of New Zealand sending delegates and having Indigenous voice, having our iwi actually involved in that on the international stage and supporting other Indigenous peoples that were at those INC UN conferences around the world. That was a really radical place for EcoMatters to be, but a very important place for us. We were involved in being able to be involved in shoreline adaptation plans that were happening around climate change mitigation. We were able to work with Healthy Waters, and a wonderful thing that emerged with our relationship that developed with our mana whenua was the development of Te Ao native plant nursery. So an opportunity for community and iwi to come together and grow a native plant nursery as a result of that relationship. We are full of hope and motivation. We know that behaviour change for our community requires far more than just awareness and knowledge. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing the right thing. We know what's involved in creating a tribe and a community for people to feel a part of, so that doing stream cleanups or being aware of what chemicals you're actually using in your home becomes second nature and becomes normalised. The science research provides us with the data to enable people that are working alongside us know that they make a real difference. Through the work that we did with microplastics, we were able to understand that up to 80% of microplastics were actually being held within our estuary system, within our streams, within our tributaries, and that if we did the cleanups there, we could avoid those plastics reaching our ocean. That is an important and critical message to get to the 100 people that turn up to do a stream cleanup with us, that are in the water, in waders, digging out rubbish that has been in there for years. It's important information to share with us. We would not have had that if we hadn't been involved in this project. And we're able to translate the language for our communities, which is so important from our perspective, is to be able to take the science, translate it into a conversation that our communities understand, and pass it on. I'll let you guys take a look at some thoughts for the future. One thing that I would just like to say is that co-leadership, there is real power in it. I think it's really true, and we all understand we are faced with some wicked problems around the world. In fact, it feels like it's actually getting harder and more difficult, and there's more going on. And so the only way forward when we are faced with those wicked problems is collaboration of this kind actually happening. I want to thank you all for having me here today. It's been a real pleasure to present to you. I cannot tell you, as an organisation, what being involved with this project meant for us. It was the first time that we had had access to scientists and to researchers like this, and we really developed incredible friendships, an incredible level of trust. And I know now that I could pick up the phone and talk to any of those experts in their field, and they would take the time to talk to me and explain a concept to me. And to me, that is worth the weight in gold. Thank you.
I just have a presentation to provide to Carla. That was an amazing presentation. I enjoyed every moment of it. It actually says and reinforces everything that we do know intuitively as people that are really important in what we do. And there's one thing that very dear colleagues of mine in the Indigenous communities in Australia say, nothing about us without us. And that is exactly what you've just demonstrated through this project. And, we can learn so much from what you've done. This is a gift from the organising committee in appreciation of your wonderful keynote address. Thank you so much.